Murdorf and the Mortal Flaw, Book 1, Chapter 32. The search begins. The knock on the king's chamber door came before the crack of dawn while the king was still in bed. "We have a problem in the dungeon," said the guard. "What sort of problem?" asked the king, rubbing his eyes. "Elk has escaped." "What do you mean escaped?" "We believe he nagged the keys from the god last night as he was changing his pot." Enraged, the king spewed belligerent remarks at the knight. "What kind of dullard moron is guarding the dungeon and gets his keys swiped? What an idiot!" "Actually, sire, I saw a guard playing cards with Elk," said a lesser guard. "What? Playing cards?" The king was irate. Since when did a god's duty include playing cards? As he was ranting over the negligence of the guards, two other guards entered the room abruptly and in a panic. "Claudius is dead, sire, killed with the sword," said one, "and the door to the security chamber has been broken into." "What?" The king was now fully awake. The sword! Oh my God, please tell me someone hasn't taken the sword, he thought. He brushed through the guards and ran for the hall of defense. All four of the guards followed on his heels. They rushed into the room and found the man, Claudius, a deep wound in his chest. His body lay in a pool of blood. Stepping over the body, the king set his eyes on the security chamber that housed the sword. The door stood wide open. He looked inside, knowing it was gone. The sword. He whispered the words almost audibly. "Is something missing, sire?" Yes, the king replied. "Wake up our guest. Tell them to go to the dining hall and take Claudius downstairs that he might be prepared for proper burial. Oh, and lock up that fool of a guard. I will deal with him later. He has cost us much harm, much harm." He reached for the door. "And clean up this bloody mess." He slammed the door behind him. A rude awakening befell the riders as they rasped on the door, called them forth, and barked orders for them to go to the dining hall. Obediently, they pried their bodies out of bed and dressed. There was much commotion for such an early hour, and all were wondering what was going on. As Novatian walked down the corridor, he spotted a friend. "What's going on?" "Well, there's been a murder." "A murder? Where?" asked Novatian. "Here, last night." Alarm shot through Novatian's mind. A friend, the king, Medora. He wondered. He felt his heart pounding in his chest. His mind was racing. "Who?" he finally asked. "Claudius, the knight." Novatian didn't know the knight, but he ran to the dining hall, eager for more information. "What's going on?" Nimri asked him, meeting him in the hallway in a half run. "A knight was murdered last night." Nimri was shocked and ran alongside Novatian to the meeting. When they got to the dining hall, about half had heard the news and the other half was eager to know what was the commotion about. An early morning rush had been put on breakfast, so some food was already on the table. Spotting the grub, they sat down and began eating as they awaited the king. The king entered, face flushed and red with anger. He barked a command for everyone except for the riders to leave the room. This was a private meeting for trusted ears only. After the doors were shut, he explained the events from the night before. "After killing the god, Elk stole the sword," he concluded. "Eat your breakfast and then ride out and search for him." There was little talk among themselves. The riders were shocked and disappointed at the news that they had lost the prized possession. They wondered how much worse it could get. The immortal king refused to ride, and now they had lost the sword. Now Windsor understood the immortal king's private words spoken to him, and he knew that it could get much worse. Ancient prophecies told him that it would get much worse. There would be war. That much Windsor knew. Halfway through breakfast, someone noticed Cosby's seat was empty. "Where is Cosby?" "He probably fell back asleep. I'll go get him," Nimri said, pushing back the chair and rushing out of the dining hall and up the palace stairs. Nimri rapped on the door and waited. "Cosby, wake up, you slugger-bed." There was no answer, so he opened the door. Cosby wasn't there, but his bag and his bedclothes were still there. But his sword was gone. Nimri returned to the dining room. He wasn't in his room. He's probably in the toilet chamber. The riders finished their breakfast and began discussing where to begin searching for elk. Cosby's plate sat vacant, still awaiting his arrival at the breakfast table. Nobby stood up from the table and chuckled. Cosby must be having some serious issues this morning. The riders had a short laugh at Cosby's expense. Everyone began quick preparations to ride out. Nimri and Novation went to check on Cosby. Not finding him in the toilet chambers, they returned to his room, but he wasn't there either. Then they went to the dining hall, assuming that he had strolled down a different hallway and missed each other, but Cosby was not in the dining hall either. I bet he's at the barn getting a jump on things, Novation said. Probably couldn't sleep. By now, just about all the riders had made it to the barn. They were scurrying around, preparing their beasts for their ride and loading up extra supplies. "We can't find Cosby," Nimri said. Looking around the barn, Navi opened the door to the stable where Cosby stabled his horse. "Looks like he's gotten a bit of a head start, Crony." Swinging open the stall door beside that one, Navi found another empty stall. "One of the king's horses is missing too," he noted, beginning to see cause for concern. Various scenarios of events of the night before were in the making. Or maybe Cosby heard the commotion last night and he went upstairs to check it out. Maybe he found the knight killed and saw elk and so he rode after him, suggested Skeeter. "Could be," Windsor said. Another suggestion arose. What if Cosby stole the sword? What if he's betrayed us? Nimri stuck up for his friend right away. Cosby wouldn't do that. The door rode up in front of the barn on Orpah, herself donned in her chainmail. Now the discussion took a new turn. Windsor shot an inquisitive look at the king. He wondered how his friend was going to react to this. "What are you doing?" "What do you mean, what am I doing?" said Medora. "Medora, I don't know how to tell you this," her father explained, "but I only intended you to ride in the roundup of the riders. You're not riding this time." "What do you mean?" She was irate. "Of course I'm riding. This is what I've been trained for, Father." "I didn't train you to be a warrior," he said curtly. "I trained you to run a kingdom." "Well, and that includes war," said Medora. "But a kingdom is not built solely on war," said the king. "But now the kingdom is at war, so I'm at war." "Medora, I didn't teach you to fight so that you could be a warrior. I taught you to fight because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what to do with a girl. All I knew, I taught you. The sword, the bow, horse riding, and yes, fighting. I did this with you because I didn't know anything else. I never meant to make you into a warrior. For heaven's sakes, you're a princess." "No, Father, I'm a warrior," she asserted. "Whether you meant for me to be one or not, I am a knight. I thought this was what you wanted." Her mouth opened without words now, as though she were stunned at her father's disapproval of her fighting. "You're not going," snapped the king, having exhausted both logic and patience. "I forbid you to go." "Well, I refuse your forbidding," she said. Her horse pranced in front of the barn, holding the reins steady. She looked at her father and quoted a prophecy spoken by Windsor before she was conceived. "A child shall be born, an only child. She will be a delicate pearl among warriors and will be gifted with the pulling of a string. A diplomat, she will perform her duties more efficiently than any son and will be more precious to you than 10 sons. Her place in history will be unique, ushering in the reversal of things to come, playing a key role in the unfolding of major events. Courageous as a lion, gentle as a fawn, wise as an eagle, shrewd as a fox. A matron of a kingdom. You will be her strength, and she will be the strength of the kingdom." "How do you know of that?" her father asked. He had never shared this information with her. "I read it. You wrote it down. Do you think that by sheltering me or keeping words of a prophecy from me that I will not fulfill my purpose?" she asked. I only wanted to protect you, Medora. That's all." "You can't protect me, Father. I must do what I feel is in my heart. One day I won't have you, and I will be queen. But today I'm a warrior." She turned her mount towards the gates and rode off. The king was disconsolate. I don't think I could live with myself if something happened to her, he said. Putting his hand on his shoulder, Windsor said, We'll all look out for her. Navi assured the king that he would keep a sharp eye on her. Navi patted the king on the shoulder, enjoying watching him squirm. They mounted their beast and began to search the area for clues. They had not gotten far from the castle when along the path in the tree line they spotted a sword, the blade still holding on to its blood. Nimri and Novation immediately recognized it as belonging to Cosby. Search around the trees here, Windsor ordered. He feared they might find Cosby's body in pieces. It only took a few steps behind the trees for them to discover a body. Blood pooled on the ground from a single stab wound to the abdomen. His face was twisted in both agony and surprise of death. The knight had met his match. In his hand was the torn piece of a black cape. It was the knight who had overheard the news that the cursed sword had been housed in the castle when the riders were dining. Now things were looking clearer. Dark riders must have captured Cosby, Novation concluded. Outward concerns fell upon Ormondale, forcing lines into his forehead. Better the poor lad had died now, Ormondale said. He took in a deep breath, trying to curb the anxiety crouching in his soul. Another scenario was offered by Boldar. What if Cosby stole the sword of power and killed this knight, and Cosby left his sword behind in exchange for the sword of power? Cosby wouldn't have done that, Nimri argued vehemently. I've known him my whole life. Well, I'm just saying, Boldar said. No, you're accusing, Nimri said. We can speculate all day, Windsor said, bringing a halt to words that could turn into a fight. I will call for a search of the premises, said the king. Nadora had a plan. Windsor, Gilmanza, Navi, and Mace, Novation and I will take the dragons by air, she said, looking at Novation. The riders split up, some by air, others on ground, but they turned up nothing. Gilgore peered over the landscape, but could see no one in the near distance. Feeling certain Elk would have ridden towards Quaidar to claim his position as the possessor of the cursed sword, and Cosby was taken captive, the riders rode southwest towards Quaidar, hoping to find some answers before they reached the cursed land. Having searched for 3 days with no luck, the riders entered a nearby town called Mesnos in the far south of Shalaheen. Tired and hungry, they found a local pub. Gilgore couldn't get through the narrow door, so he sat outside, the pub itself being too small for him. The whole dang world is too small, complained Gilgore, disappointed that he couldn't go inside with his friends. The others walked into the smoke-filled pub, dimly lit and crowded with patrons. They pushed 3 tables together at the back of the bar. Skeeter ordered a beer and immediately guzzled it. Windsor watched with concern and gave a disapproving glare. The last thing he wanted to deal with was a drunk. Skeeter ignored Windsor, but it was impossible to ignore the golden eyes of a Mace. The boy never said a word, but his eyes made Skeeter feel a little guilty. The riders had just gotten their food and were about to dig in when Navi caught the glimpse of a man. His backside resembled Elk. Dropping the chicken leg, he said, "There's Elk." He jumped up and rushed out the door, the riders following behind him. Zorgar shoved a meatball in his mouth and followed them. Navi ran out the door and, spotting a glimpse of that wavy red hair as he darted around the building, sprinted and jumped on the man, knocking him to the ground, landing on top of him. Stunned, the man whacked Navi in the head with a skillet, knocking him nearly senseless. Cooked food flew out of the pan, and Navi rolled off the man to the ground. He was only semi-conscious. Gilgore stood there stupidly for a moment, confused as to what was going on. Just as the man was about to hit Navi in the head again, he looked up and nearly trembled at the sight of the giant standing over him. Gilgore grabbed the man with his bare hand. Just in the nick of time, the other riders appeared around the corner. The man began to shake and nearly started to cry. "Please don't hurt me. I'm just the cook. I was taking this food out to the cats in the barn." "Gilgore, let the man go." Windsor spoke calmly, diffusing the situation. Vandorf stepped forward to help the man up. "My apologies," he offered. "Our friends thought you were someone else." "Well, You should try being sure before you attack someone, said the cook. He's kind of crazy, Osney spoke up, circling his finger around Navi's head. We do apologize. He just got away from us. Things just don't turn right up there, you know. Crazy, try putting him on a leash. The man stared at Navi's wild hair and drew further conclusions. Yes, sir. We'll give that a try, Windsor said. It appeared they had managed to appease the cook without further conflict. Starry-eyed and dazed, Navi gripped his head, stammering insensible words. Maybe that knocked some sense into him. Probably just what he needed, Osney said, laughing. You said something about kittens? Inquired Gilgore. Yeah, in the hay, in those stalls. Can I see them? Windsor rolled his eyes at his friend. Well, you're not going to hurt them, are you? The cook was still wary. Gilgore opened his big mouth, showing his teeth, and roared. The cook took one look at him, dropped his skillet, and ran back inside. Stupid people, said Gilgore. He walked to a pile of hay, sat on the ground, and held a single tiny kitten in the palm of his gigantic hand. Before long, all the little kittens were crawling all over him. Gilgore giggled, playing with them like a little child. A dark dragon swooped down and planted its feet on solid ground. A large company followed, circling the warrior. They celebrated the man, lifting their voices to praise him and hail him as their leader. The celebrated warrior raised his sword in the air. Beams of moonlight lit upon the blade, causing the rubies on the hilt to dance in the light. The man was shrouded in black, initiated into the cult of Darvan. 2 horsemen lifted him up, and all bowed to the ground before him. Then they mounted their beast, and the 2 that had lifted him up escorted him to a strange land and into a dark palace. He entered a throne room overdone with gold. The man sitting on the throne was robed in a brocaded black robe. The celebrated man felt uncertain and vulnerable, even with the power of sword securely in his hand. He knelt before the throne, hoping to find acceptance. He always longed to be noticed for his abilities and to be recognized as a leader, to be someone superior to his peers. Stained fingernails rasped the gold chair, and a grin of pleasure took over his face. You have made a good choice, said Darvan, with precise articulation. I am pleased with you. Now you will be great for my name's sake, and yours, said Darvan.